Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to take apart and adjust a King butane gas vintage lighter. Um, this particular version is one from between 1960 and 1970. I couldn't find the exact dates on it, but it is a vintage one. This one has a Pinnacle gas uh, marker on it, showing what brand of gas it can use. So I believe this is the GS King, or there's a couple little letters here at the very top. They say GS, and then King is the brand down there. And then the box is a red box with felt lining here. The box does come with a butane adapter, which we don't necessarily need anymore. So that is just something that you could use um, in the past. Um, so I use Ronson fuel for this, and it seems to work pretty well. So this one has a cover on it that closes when you want it to shut off the gas, and then open when you want the gas to be on, and then a striker there. So one thing that you might want to do is replace the flint on it or adjust the fuel level. Sometimes this can get loose, so it doesn't work as well. Other times the flint might be out and you might need to change that. So I'm going to show everyone how to take this apart and completely disassemble most of the components on it, so at least you know what you're looking for. Alright, and first the tools that I'm going to use are a regular screwdriver. Ideally you would use one a little bit bigger than this. I'll need a small screwdriver. I like this guy here. And then a needle nose pliers just to remove one of the screws. So the first thing that I'll do is take off the gas fill cover, so that comes out. And whenever you're doing something like this with small components, make sure that you do it over a table, so that if something does drop like we just saw there, that it doesn't go too far, and don't do it over the floor, so you might lose something. So right here is a fuel fill nozzle. You would normally get a Ronson butane bottle or something like that, and then put it on here and just push down while it's upside down, and then this will get really cold, and you'll feel it. You could feel it until it gets to completely full. So what I'll do now is when you do adjust this, or if you do any sort of adjustments on this lighter, make sure that you empty it of gas first. One way to do that is to carefully loosen this in a well-ventilated area without any sort of open flames, and that will open it up and release all the gas. Again, make sure that it's well ventilated so you don't kill yourself or anything like that. So what I'll do is I'll just take the screwdriver and carefully unscrew this part. And again, like I said, you should probably use a little bit wider screwdriver than what I'm using here. But that's what we got. So this fuel nozzle does have an O-ring on it. So if this O-ring is bad or if it's broken, then you'll get fuel leaking out of the bottom. So if you do see fuel leaking on the bottom, be sure to replace that O-ring there. Inside here is just some cotton, so filling this container. That acts as kind of a filter for the gas. So the next piece that I want to take apart is the Flint adapter, or the Flint Spring. So I'll just take this screw out on the back. Now this screw is a wider screw, so it might be useful to take like a quarter or something like that. But you could also just use a screwdriver. So this has a plunger, has a spring, and then it has a screw attached to the back of the spring. You could change out this spring with, like say, a pen spring. So if you do need a new spring, I believe a pen would be just fine for it. So keep that there. And then now with that taken out, we could take out the striker, and you'll notice that it doesn't strike with that spring out. The flint is still in here, so I didn't get the flint out of it when I took the spring out. You can knock this to try to get that flint out, or you can take this apart. So we're done with that screwdriver now. Now we can take this one. So with a small screwdriver, I'll just undo this very carefully. And then I can take my fingers and pull this out the rest of the way. Now this one's a long screw, so you can see that there. And what's useful is to order the screws and the different components, kind of like how you took them apart, so that you remember which one goes where. So as I did there. So now the next screw that we need to take out is this side one, and that one holds down this, which has a spring underneath of it. So if you do take this off, then you have to push down on this just ever so slightly, and then you can get that out. So here I'll take this out. Now this is out. I could feel it on the other side come loose. So now what I want to do is I want to push down just ever so slightly and take out the screw. So this is a fat, stubby little one. Looks like that, with a very fine screw end on the end there, and then the flatter side on the side there. Now you can take this off, and be careful that you don't turn this upside down, because there are two pieces in here that are loose now. So we'll set this aside, and then we can tip this upside down, shake a little bit, and then we have our spring and our plunger part, which holds, which works with this. So now that we've got all the screws off, we can pull the cap off, and be careful with this because there are some loose components in there. So you don't want to lose this guy here or this guy under here. So with this out, we can now take a look at this guy. This is our striker, and we have basically where the flint gets struck right there, and then the finger friction device here. So we can set those aside. And this is our adjuster for the gas level. We have an O-ring right there, and we have a gear here. So this gear is hollow on one side, and it's solid on the other side. The hollow part goes over the fuel level device, or the fuel nozzle. So if we wanted to, if we needed to, we could take out the fuel nozzle. If it were perhaps leaking for some reason, we might want to take that out and fix the O-ring. So with this device, this gear, I just put that back on and then I twisted it. And now you can take this guy out and replace that tiny O-ring right there. So the rest of this is pretty much basic. There is a way to take this this brass piece off, but you don't need to, so I'm going to leave that alone. And then I'll put this guy back in because we're done showing that. And to tighten it back up, I want to put the gear back on it, set it back down, and then tighten it up, and then bring it out just a tiny bit. So the next thing that I want to do is put the gear on, put the O-ring back on, there, and then I'm going to put the cap back on. So I'll put the striker back in where it belongs, and then we just set that back down in here. Okay, push that down, and there you go. So now basically in reverse order, you can either go here, 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 or what I want to do is I want to put the striker screw back in first and tighten that down. There you go. Then I want to put the plunger in, make sure that the spring goes in the middle there. So now the plunger's back in. Now I want to set this on, and I'm going to need to push it down with my thumb. So there we go. Pushing it down with my thumb. And then I can push the screw in, and when it's pushed in, you can let go a little bit with the thumb if you need to, but I'm going to keep it there just to give some tension on it. And now it's screwed in. Do a couple more turns. There we go. So now that's back on, and it feels good. And then we can put the Flint back on. Oops. So with the Flint, it's got this spring that kind of lets it sit out a little bit. You got to push that in while you're screwing it, so that's why I'm pushing it down with my thumb, and then I'm turning the whole lighter. Then we just carefully twist that screw back in until it's semi-tight, and we can test it, and it looks like it's working again. And then we can put the nozzle back in, the fill nozzle, and we can tighten that back down. And when you tighten this, be careful that you don't use a screwdriver that's too small, or else you'll cut the metal, and you don't want to do that because that'll ruin it. So just be extra careful when you put this in, that you got it right in the center. Maybe you got the right screwdriver, and then everything's good. And then we put this cover back on, and then we're all done. So one thing that I forgot to mention was if this is loose, once you get all the components out and take this cover off, there's a tiny screw on the bottom of here. You just twist it to tighten it, and then you just want it to be snug enough that you can still turn it easily, because it is going to work against that gear. So you don't want it too tight when you put it back on. And that's all there is to it. Then you can polish this up with some metal polish, and then you'll be all set. Alright, thanks for watching.